everyone, and welcome back to our Tuscan house beginners tutorial. This has been going on for 3 weeks already, I think, and this is our 4th week. At the end of week 3, I left you on a bit of a cliffhanger, like a series ending, where we put the foliage in for the bougainvillea, and our next job is to do the flowers. And what I've also been having a think about the flowers, the plants that are in these pots. Now I'm well aware that on our, that's the bit that we're looking at now, that on our reference photograph these are just green, the kind of green scrubby looking things really. And I'm thinking I might put some flowers on them. It's our painting, we can jazz it up if we want. But first things first, let's tend to this bougainvillea. So it's a pink. So what I've got out in preparation is some, this is Liquitex actually, Liquitex Professional, and it's quinacridone red orange colour. No, that is not what I've got out. What I've got out is golden alizarin crimson, which is a really, crimson, you know what crimson is, intense reddy purple. I've also got out some golden quinacridone magenta, which is a deep pink colour, and copious amount of white to mix through to give us some credible bougainvillea type colours. So let's, oh, and for this I will be using a number 2 filbert, which is a very, very small filbert. It's a Zen Art brush. I can't speak highly enough of these Zen Art brushes. I've got a lot of them now. I've got 2 full sets, different sets of them. One set is purely filberts, and this is the smallest one, and it's a number 2. You can see it's titchy, but it's great for flowers and petals and what have you. So I'm just going to mix some colour up, and I'm going to keep mixing as we go, so as we get different shades and hues of it as we go. So I'll start with the quinacridone, a little bit of alizarin crimson, and a whole lot of white. Let's see where that takes us to. Maybe for the first lot of petals we need something a bit darker. So I'll add a bit more alizarin crimson through there. That's a nice colour, I think. Get some of this paint off my brush and just pick it up on the end of your brush like that, like I'm showing you, because that's the marks we're going to make, like that. So there's little bits down here. There's a little bit just coming up off the pot, actually. So because we haven't mixed the colour really, really mixed it so it's a homologous colour, every time we tap into here we're getting a bit more crimson, a bit more white, which gives us different sort of shades to our flowers, which is what we want. So basically putting in the sort of background of our flowers. I mean, there are a lot of flowers, but they're not all together as a clump. There's quite a bit of sort of space between some of them. We come here, there's a lot here. There's a lot of big clumpy clump here. We'll pay attention to where we put our greenery, but also, and roughly the reference picture, but you'll get a feel for where you want to put them, I think, where you think would look good on your picture. I'm going to add another little bit of alizarin crimson into that. Come up here. You see it's just a slightly different hue to it, which is good. That's what we're after. And there's some over here that You can't actually see a stem or anything for it, it's just there, it is existing. I mean, there must be a stem, but I don't know where it is. It's got quite a lot going on here, and it comes down onto this bit here that's falling down here. There's another bit here that's falling down. Always dipping in, getting a slightly different mix on your brush. Keeps your painting much more lively. Much more lively than just all one hue. So, there's big clumps of it some places, and then, you know, not very much other places. Picking up another little bit of alizarin crimson, change it a little bit, and that's got nothing there, then quite a bit on the end there. It definitely goes across here. So you see, I'm twisting my brush as I'm doing it, so my marks aren't always the same mark, because that's not what you want, that's not how flowers grow. Another little bit of alizarin, and then this comes out a little bit more. That's good for our first pass over there. Just going to put a little bit more in at the bottom. Spritzer. Just keeps your paint alive. Now the other side is slightly darker. So I'm just going to mix some alizarin through that before we start. There's a lot up here. Keep turning and twisting your brush as you put the flowers in. We'll come back over them with a lighter colour to highlight some of them. Keep it twisting and turning, I can't emphasise that enough. So you don't get all your brush marks looking the same. There's a lot in here. Okay, so that's our base coat done. Clean your brush out. And let's go more for the quinacridone this time. And you see you get this gorgeous jewel-like colour, which is much lighter than the crimson. And that's what we're going to use to put. Snip your brush out if it's got too much paint from mixing on, and load it up, and we'll just start again. Start from the top. We'll start from this side. Now don't cover up every bit that you've just done, because then it just wouldn't be worth having done the first bit. looking for highlights really here. That quinacridone is such a pretty colour. I'm just going to mix slightly more white into it as we come down. Add a little bit of white up here as well. So it's had its low light, the base colour. These ones have had a mid light, and this is very, very light, which is fine. I'm alright with that. That's quite a bushy one there. I'm just going to mix a little bit more paint up. Bit of quinacridone, bit of white. So you can see all our hard work coming together now. It's really beginning to look pretty. Once you've done this, you can stand back and see where you need to put more highlights, lowlights, whatever in. It's doubtful that you'd get it all how you want it on the first pass, really. Definitely leave some of that darker colour showing. That's what gives it the depth and definition. Pretty. Really pretty. You see, because I haven't mixed my colours up completely, you keep picking up little pops of the quinacridone on its own, and if I add more white in and don't mix that up so well, you pick up bits of white as well. Let's go back over some of these and spread the joy of the white. Just some highlights. You know, you don't want the highlights everywhere, because then this cease being highlights. So that's pretty, I think. Okay. I don't think it needs any more. I think when you look at the reference picture, you can still see quite a lot of that shutter through there, and you can still see quite a lot of it through ours. We put a lot of work into that shutter, and so, you know, we want to be able to see it. So now it's just a matter of, excuse me, of putting the next layer onto this side. For that, I'm just going to add a bit more quinacridone than we finished up with on the other side, for a sort of mid-tone. like that. Don't overmix it. Yeah, it's a slightly darker colour, which is nice. Let's bring that down. It's just escaping. You put the dark first layer on and you think, oh, it looks a bit dreary, but then you need it when you come to this to contrast it from. If you didn't have that dark layer on first, it wouldn't get half of this definition and depth that you've got. So, you know, I know it seems tedious, we're going over these, you know, at least 3 times, but take the time and do it, it's worth it. Because you're worth it. There we are, so we'll just get some highlights for that. And that's the bougainvillea done. So a bit of white in through that, lighten it up. And really be careful, don't go too mad with these highlights. See the joy of a filbert brush at times like this. And if you haven't got a filbert, don't worry, you can use another brush, just use the corner of it, as we did when we were putting the plants in. You can use a bright, you know, square brush, just use the corner. So let's ponder a while on that. I think it's nice. What I would say is I think this side needs some more vegetation in it. I mean, I appreciate that when you look at the reference, there's very little greenery to do with that, but it does need some. And this side needs the greenery lightening up a bit. Needs some whitened green in there. So I hope there's still a bit, yeah, still a bit of life left in that. So we use that, we'll take some of this white that we've got out for our flowers. Let's mix a nice light green. Just use that little bit of yellow that's there, give us a nice, that's a lovely green, that's a nice green. We'll just add some bits of foliage here and there. Punch some holes into some of those larger groups of wisteria with some of this green, like that. Something like that. We'll have to come back and resolve that. I mean, I did say when we were doing the green that it did look very sparse, and we might feel better about it if we put some more in. But you can see more clearly once you've got the flowers in, just where you need that greenery. I mean, it really looked like it was just flowers clinging to a wall. So we're just adding some lighter. lighter touches. I'll add that white there but not mix it through, so I'll pick some of it up randomly. Break this up a bit with some green. And maybe over here. I think that looks a lot better. Now this side, I really like that side, so I'll be careful not to do anything to wreck it. I'm just going to put some in along this support here, because I think that's probably where things would grow. Just going to add a little bit of darkness to that. I think it would have some tendrils out there, don't you? So we're really making progress now. And in a minute or two I'll make a decision as to whether we're going to make these plants here into flowering plants. I'll give you 3 guesses, but you only need 1. If you know me, you only need 1. Let's punch holes in some of those larger clumps of flowers that you've got. Punch holes with some greenery. Makes it look a bit more real. There's one coming up here. I've got a bit of a gap in there. Okay, I'm quite happy with that really. In fact, I'm quite happy with it. I saw somewhere that needed some help. Now I don't know where it was. There, that's where it was. I remember now. Just a little bit of darkening over that. It's just too regimented. There we are. So there's this that was my first mark, which I don't like. So I just need to do that to it, and it's sorted. So I think that's our bougainvillea in. So it's time now to move on to the other plants and flower them up. Okay. Right, I'm back. I've just taken a short break and I've come back to this and it's dried. And it's, I mean, acrylics always do dry darker, but this is dried quite lifeless, I think. I mean, it's pretty whatever, but when you look at it in comparison to this, it's very lifeless. So I think we need a quick injection of light into here. And the best thing to do, I think, is put quite a lot of white in it and then put the magenta over the white. The white will reflect the light back through the magenta and give us a much more vibrant colour. So that's my intention. I also want to put some more flowers down in this section here, because we've got this shadow which now looks like it's just something on the wall, where it is actually a shadow from these flowers. So we need to build that up a bit and generally build up the intensity, vibrancy of the flowers. So I'm going to go ahead with my 1/4 inch angle shader, as we have been doing for the flowers. Dip into the white, and I'm going to put sort of copious amounts of of this on here to really brighten us up, make this sing and dance. And as I say, quite a lot down here because we put that shadow in and now there's nothing throwing that shadow, so it doesn't really make sense. So we'll sort that out, resolve that problem. Maybe give it a few more flowers to boot. Still trying to leave some of those darker shades to give it, you know, the darker, medium and light. But I'm actually varying onto, swinging onto where we had no flowers at all before and placing some of this white. I really want this to be a lovely show of flowers, you know, something really nice and vibrant. The other thing that I am definitely going to do is put flowers in these pots, and when we come to do that, one of them will be yellow, and we'll employ this same technique of putting white down first, because if you remember, I've told you yellow, no matter what yellow, which yellow, whose yellow, anything, it's transparent, and so in order to get it to look yellow, we need to put the white down first and put the yellow on top of it. That way then you get your white with the opaque quality, and then your yellow will sit on top and sing, hopefully. So hopefully we'll get a lot more flowers here, looking a lot more exciting. And it just takes time, just, you know, I want to get as much done in the time that we have together as I possibly can, and so I tend to rush as much as I can. You've got time at home, you can always pause me on the video, and I'll sit there patiently waiting for you until you've caught up with me and come back, and we'll do a little bit more. Or YouTube does have the facility to for you to watch back videos at slower speeds. I'm not quite sure where you find that facility actually, but I know it does. So you could always watch me at half speed or quarter speed or whatever. That way then, you know, it's easier to keep up, of course. Doesn't matter if this dries before we put our top coat on. I mean, these ones down here are dry now. It's the white we need. We don't need it, you know, to be wet or dry or whatever. We just need the colour so we can put our nice magenta on top. Build a nice ball of flowers out here. Don't forget you need to leave some of the darker ones. I mean, you can always go back in with the dark, but we don't want to be doing this bougainvillea forever. But I do feel it's a major player in this painting, and so it's worth trying to get it right. They seem to sort of grow together in big balls almost, but they are individual flowers. Now does that come over the top? Let's just check. It just comes over a little way, and ours isn't, so let's just bring ours over a little bit over to here. Okay. So now let's add some magenta over the top of that. And ultimately this should sort of sparkle a bit more than we had. I'm actually using a Snelia Abstract colour I'm not sure I've got the same coverage as I have with the golden. This is golden quinacridone magenta, so I'm just going to go back to it. I feel like I get better coverage with the golden than I'm getting with the Sennelier. Might be in my head because I love golden so much that I find it difficult to believe anything's as good as golden, but we'll see. Load my brush up and off we go. Oh no, that's very different. That's much more coverage there. Well, right there, there's a useful little experiment. If you're going to buy magenta, buy golden. Doesn't matter if some of this white remains, because it'll just look like sort of highlights where the sun's catching it and bleaching it out. So you don't have to be meticulous about going over every single petal that you've put out. You know, the sun does catch things and gives it sort of very bleached out highlights. So that's what ours will look like. You know, as I say, you can of course take your time with this. These bits where it's thicker are still quite wet actually. You can see down at the bottom where my paint's thick, it's a really nice effect. I like that. And we are actually getting different tones anyway, because we're getting the stuff that's on top of the white, the bits that were going over onto the wall, some that's over the pink already, not the white. But if we just look at that, it's much more vibrant than we had, and I think it's an exercise worth doing really. If you're going to do it, you know, if you're going to spend all this time, let's get it right. Doesn't really take that long. So what I'm suggesting is, if you're watching this through before you paint it, is when you put your last coat of highlight on, make it a coat of white and then come back and do this. So that would save you one layer. Do like these nice thicker sort of textured clumps that we're getting. And it's mixing in through, mottling in through with the white to give us some different tones. I don't think anybody could mistake this for bougainvillea now. And I think, if memory serves, the door's actually got some as well, climbing up the left side. But I'm going to have a look into it and see what colour bougainvillea actually grows in, what it comes in. There's buying a car. And see if there's a more yellowy, peachy sort of colour, and we can make the bougainvillea that's growing up the door slightly different colour. Just for a bit of interest. Interesting how much more coverage this golden has than the Sennelier, isn't it? I've always had great faith in the Sennelier, but it goes to show. Maybe you do get what you pay for after all. That's generally the rule, isn't it? Don't you find, Mr. Handyman, get what you pay for?
In most cases, for definite.
You doing all right, Mr. H?
Grand and dandy.
Grand and dandy. You can't say fairer than that, can you really?
Nope. As good as it gets.
Oh, right. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Do you ever do any painting, Mr. H?
Not much artistic painting.
Right.
I do all the grunt work with painting furniture.
Ah.
And leave all the fancy stuff for you.
Yeah, he's a good lad. He does paint the furniture and gets its own left with panels or whatever to actually paint it pretty. So, you know, that saves me invaluable time that I can be on here explaining to you what to do. Just put some pulling down here.
I do like to dabble, but finding time isn't always the easiest.
No, actually, it's amazing how much time...
I should do it while you're on there.
Yeah,
I should do it in the background. Then at least I know you're not looking over my shoulder.
Do you feel that that's the problem, that I would look over your shoulder? Because if that's the case, you're right.
Well...
Right, okay, so that's that side sorted, and actually I think even at that it looks better. It will don't die on me now. It will dry darker. Acrylics just do, it's just the way they are. And for this one, just as a point of difference, I'm not going to put the white on. I've got some nice light colours anyway. I'm just going to go over that and just drop some shading into it to make it look a little bit more alive. But I don't really want to mess with the colour too much. I quite like this colour. I don't know how it's ended up different from the other one, but it has. So I'll just drop some interest into it. That's really what you're looking for with your paintings. Interest. I mean, nobody is ever going to come and stare at this like you're staring at it. They want to look at the picture as a whole. I mean, they might sort of, oh, how's she done that? But there's only you, actually, that will ever stare at this picture like this. So, you know, don't be too hard on yourself. It's the overall impression that we want to be right, not every tiny little bougainvillea petal. It's very easy to stress, mind, isn't it, really? You know, you put things, oh, it's got right, should I have done that? You know, it's the whole overall look that we're going for. And, you know, we have to remember this is a painting for beginners. We're just setting off on our journey. Who knows where we might end? But all I do know is you've got to put the hours in, you've got to put the practice in, you've got to get to know your brushes, your paints, to be really comfortable with what everything does, and you know what everything, you know, which brush does what, etc. So yeah, I'm happy with that, I quite like that. I think that's okay. That's fine. Right, so I want to put some colour into these plants here. Quite what colour, I'm not really sure. One of them is going to be yellow. Let's just wash that pink off there, because that's bright pink. You know, even after you've washed it in the water and you do like that, it's amazing how much pink there is left in it. So when you're rinsing your brushes under the tap, there's guaranteed to be still paint in it. So what I do is I get a tiny little bit of fairy liquid on the palm of my hand, take my brush and I swirl it round. And when you do that, the amount of colour that comes off into the fairy liquid is quite shocking. So rinse your brush out, more fairy liquid, keep doing that until it's, you know, that it's clean. and then rinse all the fairy liquid out properly and put it to dry, like, you know, that way, not that way, not that way, but flat to dry. That's my tip for today. Right, so put some colour on these. Actually, the one that I'm doing yellow, come to think of it, I'm going to use a yellow, well, it's a yellow ochre actually. I'm going to put that on first. That's going to be, remember when we built the bougainvillea, we talked about having dark lights and highlights, and it's the same with any flowers. So for my dark, I'm going to use yellow ochre. If you've got yellow oxide, anything like that, you know, a darker yellow hue, that's what we're looking for. And I'm going to do it, I'm going to make this one flowery. Same thing, I'm using the angle of my angle shader to achieve that. I'm not going to go bananas with this, it's just some flowers. Not sunflowers, some flowers. That's probably sufficient. It's just going to add interest to the eye. Then I'm going to go for the white where I want the yellow to be. If you get my drift. So a bit white on your brush, and then just some highlights. And they're usually down one side depending on which way the sun's hitting it. So we'll leave that there like that. And then our yellow. I'm using Hansa yellow, it doesn't matter at all. A yellow, any yellow will do the job. And just go over where you put the white. And we'll have a point of interest. Something to take our eye. Okay, I'll let that dry. I might have to come back and put some highlights in, but so far so good. Sort of one here, maybe red. Red would be good. Red is also well known for being transparent. I'll give this a try. If I have to come back over a couple of times, so be it. I will do that. This is a darker, it's called, it's a Liquitex Professional, it's called Quinacridone Red Orange. I think that might make a nice dark for our little flowers in here. I only need a titchy bit. And really, I don't put notes on that. I don't really, I don't want too many, otherwise they start looking like we're doing, like you're painting them in, just for something to do. So, I think that's alright, and we'll just take a bit of the brighter red, give them a bit of interest. Just brings them to life a little bit. Okay. So I don't know what sort of plant that is, but it looks to me fairly credible. I think I'm going to leave that one because I like the light green leaves on it, and it would be fighting anyway with the bougainvillea each side of it. And this one does look a bit scrubby. It looks a bit like a, I don't know what it looks like, but I'm going to put white flowers on it anyway. You can make your own mind up what flowers you want, what colour, whatever, what shape, whatever you want to do them. And I think this is just going to have like quite a lot of smallish little clusters. I'm going to have to come back in and replace these because they're just being sucked down into the green. A little bit coming down the side there. I'll go back in. If they're dry enough, I'll give them a second coat. How thick they are. There we are. If we look at it again and they've disappeared, well, we'll come back in with white and deal with that then. Okay, so I think there's one more thing that I want to do there before I forget, and that is to get my little spot brush out. No, that's the wrong. I think that's the spot. Mr. Handyman was in charity shop the other day, and he found a roll of brushes, manicurists' brushes, and there was, I don't know how many of them there were, probably 20 at least, of tiny little brushes for putting spots on nails when you're doing a manicure, and you know, little brushes for painting on nails. Absolutely perfect. So, you know, that was a really good find. What was I going to do with that? Oh yes, I know. So I'm just going to pick up some white. I'm just going to put some spots on here as if they were the fastenings of this metalwork, like that. So this looks like it's being held up by something as opposed to being held up by magic. So, how are we doing? I might come back when it's all finished and just highlight these highlights because they're they're quite dull. However, I think it's time to move on to the door.
I'll put the reference section.
Yeah. So, let's look at this door. It's got quite heavy shading at the top, but what colour is the door? And that's not a stupid question. It's brown, but it's got very heavy streaks of this orangey yellow ochre colour, and it's got a lot of sort of whitewashy bits around here. So I think the easiest way to tackle this is to draw the line there that's the back of this lintel, and colour that in dark brown. Then just lighten our raw umber slightly and paint the rest of the door in. And then we'll come back with colour and washes to give us that look. So I just need to get some transfer paper and make sure I can see where we're going with that. I'm not going to do the steps just yet. Look at all the paint I've picked up. Oh my goodness. Oh well, I've got a nice jazzy hinge now. So, I'm going to use a ruler for this. This is the very top of the door here. Ooh, no it's not. There. And it goes along to there. That's kind of the end of the stone looking colour, and that's the end of the shadow. And this is where this door, I have to do it that way so I can see where it is. There and there. So that's the end of that door. There. And this other door sort of starts It's hard to tell really. It's just, it does start at the same place the other stops. It's just a row of shadow really.
It's slightly further back, that
It's
door.
further back, is it?
Yeah, if you look.
That must, yes it is. It does sit further back. Let's just draw that in to give us a help. Give us a clue what we're up to. And that just comes slightly further forward yet. I'm not sure if I've got these lines on, so I'll just draw them on just to be sure. And this one down here. Okay, so that should give us enough help. We're going to have to come back and transfer some of the markings once we've got the brown on, but for the time being, I think that's okay. There we are, that's good, good enough. I thought I transferred the lintel on when I was doing the, in fact I have, it's there, but it's so faint. I'm going to draw that on again because it's straining my eyesight, and there's just no need when we have tools to help. So the lintely part is here to where? There. Along there to there. Down here. Let's go straight through the plant pot like it doesn't exist, because it's going to get painted in later. And then there's one other side. I can't really see it, so I'll have to guess it's right there. Okay. And that one goes down to there. Oh no, that's this plant pot. It does look like it goes down to there. I'm going to paint it to there. Anyways, there's a lot of shadows and stuff going on in here. Okay, so we can see what we're about to paint now, so that's always a good help. Right, these have dried now and I'm quite happy with them. I think they had a nice little point of interest. You can add more flowers if you like, different coloured flowers, whatever you fancy. Right, so the lintel, we're going to make it that buff sort of colour that we used before, off-white, which I have out somewhere. If you haven't got this titanium white, it's called titanium buff. If you haven't got that, just add a bit of yellow ochre, maybe a tiny bit of black, tiny, to ordinary white, and you'll end up with this sort of colour. It's just to paint the lintels in, but they're not really going to stay this colour, so the background of them will, so it's, we'll paint them in. It gives us a better idea of where the door is, etc. Okay, so we can probably get away with a much larger brush. Let's get some water in that. And let's just paint this. This might need a couple of, in fact it's going to need a couple of coats. I'm using my larger angle brush, and the reason I'm using an angle brush is so I can get up there on the I can't remember what you call it, chisel, on the chisel edge. And oh dear, and get a good straight line for the side of the lintel. I'm definitely going to need 2 coats. It's trying to cover. It's really trying hard to cover. but it's not happening. Let's just have a look at the reference picture. Yeah, that's okay. I've got a line down here from previous, but I don't really know what that's about, so I'll ignore it. I find getting edges much easier on the right hand side of things than on the left hand side, because I'm left-handed. I imagine if you're right-handed, which most people are, you'll find it easier the other way around. So once I've got all these the right edges straight, I'm going to turn my work around so that I can get straight edges on the other side. I just find getting edges down there, I can't actually see where the edge is, so it makes it a bit difficult. But that's kind of all my left edges in there, my right one. So I'm just going to turn it around so that I can get these edges in on the other side, and I'd like to bet you have a similar problem, but the other way around. It's very difficult painting if you can't see the line that you're painting to. A lot of paint there. You do need enough paint on your brush for it to glide, otherwise it's almost impossible trying to do this. So that lintel above the door, on the wrong side. Yeah, that's okay. Everything's okay. I hope you're enjoying painting along. I know a few of you are painting along with me, which is great. Makes me feel good. I think we're all going to feel mighty accomplished when we come to the end and we've got a painting that we can hang up or give away to someone special, perhaps. I mean, what a lovely gift it would be, wouldn't it? All your own work. Doesn't get more personal really than that, does it? I mean, but you know, by the end we'll have spent some considerable time on this. But then when we get to the end, we have to choose another one to do. Maybe one that we'll put, you know, more detail into. Because this one, we could have made this one more detailed, but we're trying to simplify it until we get our feet under us and know what we're up to. Once again, this is the wrong sort of edge for me, but give it a go. I think I'll probably give this another coat, but I'll probably do that off camera, to be honest with you. Oh, I brought that out to there, and yet I've just decided it didn't go out to there. That's a bit of a scunner. I think it goes to there. So, let me show you what you do if you've made a mistake like that. Wipe as much paint off your brush as you can. Get some water, put it on the bit that you don't want it to be there anymore. Dab it off, and most of it will come off. We might need a second attempt. And dab it off. So there you go. So if ever you end up with paint where you'd really rather it wasn't, that's the way to get rid of it. You know, like I keep saying to you all the way through, it is only paint. It's just blooming paint. If we don't like anything, if we don't like it all, we can just take white paint or whatever and paint over it. It's, you know, nobody's coming around to your front door saying, I don't think you made a very good job of that. Not at all. Crack on and enjoy it.
That is what it's all about at the end of the day.
Well, it is. It's not supposed to be a trial by 1,000 paintbrushes. Although that would be nice, actually, 1,000 paintbrushes. I'm trying. I'm trying to get there. Now, if you're not enjoying it, don't do it. You know, go and find something else. Cross stitch is nice. I used to do cross stitch. If you're enjoying it, great. You can really get lost in it and you forget all the worries and the nasty thoughts and the everything else. Just engross yourself in painting. It's lovely. Right, so that's our kind of stonework around our door. Put it back up the right way. Have a look and make sure we're all right. Yeah, I think we are. I'm happy with that. But as I say, when I finished, when we stop filming this, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm going to go back over this and give it another coat just to bring it out a bit, because it's a bit lost there now. So, excuse me, let's get the raw umber out. If you've got a colour called Van Dyke Brown, that's the colour you want. So I'm going to use raw umber. I haven't got any Van Dyke Brown, and I'll add a bit of this titanium buff through it just to slacken it up a little bit. But that is for next time. I can't believe this is over already. So I'll see you for part 4, is it next? Part 5. Part 5 next, and we'll get the door done. At least get the door done. Okay guys, thanks so much for following along with me. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you Saturday evenings. Saturday evenings, 8 o'clock on YouTube, where the next part will go live. Thanks for watching.
Me and the boys were sitting around drinking, we was talking about things that we was thinking, when all of a sudden, what comes out of Bill's mouth? Said I'm getting old and fat and slow, and I don't recover like I did before from nights of rabble, rousing and too much fun. Well, I looked around and we all agreed, and I had a drink and I ordered 3, and I staggered back to do it all again. Then we made an oath on a rum and coke with the best intention, I'm sure you know, that we would stop this living in excess. We're gonna have one more party, one more special occasion. Do it Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays,